scroll down a bit, so right before, right there. To tag it to you, put that little pencil icon, and just type KCS. And then bam, click save, it's tagged, okay? So you can cancel that. The second thing that we'd like you to do, go to update ticket, actions update, is document thoroughly. We want you to do this regardless. Even before we do KCS, we want to make sure that the client, as well as us, know exactly what was done to fix the issue. So you do a very thorough documentation under where it says comments. And then if you scroll down, stop. Check mark this. By check marking that, once you save the update, it will automatically take everything you wrote in that update and throw it in the knowledge base. And then it sits in an approval queue where Anita and myself will review, and then they can take it and edit it. But the beauty of that is now, we don't have to worry about copy and paste or anything. You already have to do that thorough update. It's done. Automatically you're pushed into a knowledge base article. We know about it because you did KCS, and then it's also attached to the ticket. So when we look at our report, we can drill down into the ticket, we can click into the knowledge base article right from there. So it comes in, so the background of why that's important to us. And to you, all you're doing is your regular job, and literally writing KCS and clicking save.
All right. So as Rich just went through, he just explained to you how to do the tag for KCS. If you guys have any questions on how to do these things moving forward, so you forget from when you're sitting here, ask, and we'll show you how to do it. It's all pretty simple once you kind of get the gist of it. Okay, so let me go over SLAs.
So SLA stands for Service Level Agreement. It is an agreement that was reached between ITS and the Manhattan College community through a committee. The idea is that we guarantee a certain respond by time, so this is the amount of time it will take us to respond to you, as well as a resolve by time, amount of time for the issue to be resolved. Most tickets that come in from email get the SLA violation, the SLA, is 6 hours respond, 6 hours resolve. Classroom, I believe, is 30 minutes respond, 2 weeks resolve, only because of classes, so it's hard to get into classes. And then we have another one, which is 6 hours respond, a week resolve. And that's basically if it's going to be a longer issue. Related to SLAs is something that Ryan mentioned before, which is on hold. We have 2 on hold statuses. One is on hold, one is on hold waiting for response. The main difference is if we're waiting for somebody to get back to us, we say on hold waiting for response. Otherwise, it's on hold. The other on hold is our scenario where we maybe have to send the computer out to Dell or wait for a part to come in. Bottom line is, as long as the client is not actually waiting on us, if they're not waiting on us, it goes on hold. So SLA clock stops. If they are waiting on us, it should not be on hold. The other on hold example would be an event setup. So that's where we might use on hold versus on hold waiting for a response.
All right, so Rich kind of went through how the violations and warnings work. If you guys have any questions going forward about SLA violations, you could ask us, because they do get a little confusing from time to time, but we are there to help you. That's the reason why we're here. So please definitely just ask if you have questions. So lastly, I just want to kind of go through, at least for the PowerPoint, this is lastly, we're going to go through description. Now, in the description, you should be including everything that's in the actual ticket. So, all of this stuff that's up top, all of that, the requester, building, service, due date, all of this needs to be included inside the description, not to mention on the ticket itself. So, let me give you an example. So here, they're talking about Hayden 107's Wi-Fi having an issue, right? They mention it in the actual description and in the ticket itself. See how they have everything labeled? This form of double labeling makes sure that we know the exact location and issue that is at hand. Because if we do not double check and make sure that everything is correct, we will run into issues. For example, we had an issue we had miscommunication because of a network printer setup. And because of this, the client was confused as to why we called and what the issue was. So basically, long story short, is when you do these descriptions and updates in the ticket, when you're labeling room number, building, priority, type, service, all of this, you guys need to make sure that you have everything down for whoever needs the help, so the name is correct, and what department. Because you can get a name right, and they could not be in the department anymore. And then the department comes to us and says, we don't have an issue. So you guys gotta make sure that you label and describe everything in full detail.
A quick note on that. When you're updating the ticket, or if you're in a ticket and you go to edit, you'll see all these form fields. Good rule of thumb, try to fill out as much of that as possible. That's kind of a good rule of thumb, and that will change depending on type. So when you do like network assistance, you'll see different things than if you were doing bench setup, etc.
It's like the differences between service and type and task lists and stuff is basically what Rich is getting at. So when you're making these tickets, you want to make sure that you fill all of these fields, especially the ones that are required in the ITS escalation checklist. Because if all of these are not filled out, regardless of you getting a point or not, something's going to go wrong with the ticket. If one of these is missing. So to save yourselves the time and stress, make sure you have everything in the description of the ticket, including all the labels that are in the edit tab for each ticket. Does anybody have any questions with that, with the description? Nothing. Okay. All right, so now we're basically going to jump full blown into TD. Now let me ask you guys a question. How many tabs do you guys normally keep up when you use TD?
For those of you that have used TD.
Right, sorry. For those of you that use
some people
TeamDynamix.
that, like, this is like, they just had an interview and now.
Right.
Yeah.
So which ones of you haven't used TeamDynamix before? 1, 2. Okay, so we'll do a full blown lesson. So the way we use TD is kind of our issue tracker. Everything that we do ends up going through either one office or multiple, depending on escalations, and you guys will kind of get the gist of it once you get worked through it. So the way TD works is you have a login, and what you do is when you go to open a new tab, you type in manhattan.teamdynamix.com, and that's how you get to TD. What you'll do next is you'll click users. This will immediately log myself in, but what it'll do, it'll bring you to your single sign-on for your JasperNet credentials. Obviously, you will not be putting in your own. You put in whatever group that you will be using's credentials, and you'll get that from your supervisor. So once you get these credentials, you'll get to a page that almost looks identical to what's here. You can customize your desktop to whichever way you want, and then you can save it and make it your own, basically. So when you open RLC stars or library stars or op stars, you have your own desktop on the screen.
Quick note on that. So there are a bunch of desktops that are already pre-added by myself, actually, but you can make more desktops. In fact, it even says up there, new desktop. What I encourage you guys to do when you get more familiar is make yourself your own desktop, call it by your name, so that way when you go there, it'll have all the reports that you want. And then we're not going to go over this today, but your supervisor can show you how to make reports and how to add them to the desktop. So if you start thinking like, oh, I wish I had a report that showed me this, this, and this, you can make that. You have the power to do so, and you can add that to your desktop. So I just really encourage you guys to, it's very powerful, the desktops, and I really encourage you guys to build your own to suit your needs.
Okay. So, say you do not take this desktop route. There's only one other route you can take, and it's having 4 tabs open when you do ticketing. And I'm going to go through each one for you and show you what it is. So, first you have the most recent ticket queue. So all you're going to do is when you go onto TD is you're going to see the bold word that says tickets on the upper left-hand side. That is what you click, and that is your ticket tab. So these are everything that comes in that's most recent, and this is where it'll hit. Now, there are 2 other tabs that you need to be aware of, specifically to your group. The other one is assigned to me. Now, if you're library, ops, or CS, Jasper or RLC, regardless, doesn't matter, you will have your team will have its own login. So when you go to assign to me, if you work in RLC, you see the RLC tickets. If you work for library ops, the same. So this one is probably your second most important ticket tab. Solely because this is stuff that we know of, that is for your specific group, and stuff that needs to be handled right away. And this is something that we didn't mention yesterday, but classroom issues come first. If a professor needs help doing a printer setup or upgrading Office or something like that, attempt to schedule an appointment. Because we want to be able to do classroom issues as soon as possible when they come in. All right, so your third tab, which is also extremely important. Give me 1 second. Just don't want to make edits on tickets that people are currently on. Okay. Your third tab is something called Responded. Now, in Responded, I guess the way I could explain it would be, Responded is the ticket group or the ticket status that gets used when either a client answers us when we have asked them a question, or when we update a ticket and notify the client. So in those two situations is when you use the responded queue.
Well,
If that makes sense, I'm gonna
clarify that a bit because it was a little confusing. Before I do, did anybody notice when he went into the ticket that at the top there's like a little orange man? Can you open a ticket? I just want to show them that, because actually after our lesson yesterday, Ryan and I we were dueling for activation codes. We within minutes of each other sent somebody an activation code. We're not sure which one of us thinks it last, so that he had to send another one. So at the top there, you see there's like a little blue man and like a green circle. So what happens with that is it changes color depending on the scenario. If it is green, green means go. That means that nobody's looking at it. In fact, you'll see there's like a little zero inside the green circle. If it is blue, that means that another person is looking at it. And in fact, if you're not sure, if you click at it, like it says there's ability users reviewing this incident, if you click on it, it was blue, it would say who's actually looking at it. If it is orange, that means somebody is updating the ticket, which means actions update and then they're filling out the fields. If it is red, that's like super stop, because that means somebody's editing the ticket.
To go off what Rich said, I'll make it plain and simple for you. It's like a traffic light. If it's green, you can touch it. If it's yellow, slow down, see if they're working on it. If it's red, stop. Does that make sense?
And one other quick thing, if it's blue, be careful because they might be going to yellow, and I think that's what happened with us. I think it was blue or green, I don't remember.
Because blue is just viewing.
Yeah, so I would just like let the other person know, hey, by the way, I'm going to touch this, so that you guys can coordinate it and not duplicate work or potentially confuse the client. The other thing I was going to mention is with on hold and responded. So we made the responded queue actually because, have you guys heard of Search It yet?
No.
Okay. Search It stands for Student Employee Advisory Research Committee Helping Information Technology. It takes you approximately 30 times to actually remember what the acronym stands for. Search It is voted in by yourselves. It's basically all stars representing stars. And what they do is evaluate policies, procedures, make recommendations, do evaluations of peers, things of that sort. If you're interested, definitely you should provide really good information. But one of the recommendations that they made was the responded queue. They said, hey, we want to know when a ticket comes off hold. So what we did is we made a new status called responded. The procedure goes as follows. When you're going to be putting something on hold, update it, mark it as responded first. Then update it again and put it on hold. What happens with on hold, when a ticket comes off hold, which happens either because the time limit ran out, so when you put it on hold, it always forces you to pick a day and time to come off hold. So either the time limit came up, or somebody responded. When that happens, it goes back to the prior status. That's why you're being forced to update the status twice.
Okay. So